Hi everyone. Today we are going over the basics of accounts receivable within QuickBooks Online. Today's training will be helpful if you are a current QBO user that just doesn't feel super comfortable navigating the accounts receivable functions. Potentially you're brand new to QuickBooks Online, or maybe you currently use QuickBooks Desktop and are thinking about switching over to online. Wherever you're at, this is a great starting point in learning some very useful QuickBooks Online tools. My name is Ava. I'm going to be doing your presentation today. A little bit about me is I am a staff accountant in the Client Advisory Services Department here at Lutz. Some key takeaways that you will have from today are getting a general understanding of the sales and getting paid section, as well as the customer hub in QuickBooks Online. These apps house all of the main accounts receivable functions, as well as a lot of useful customer functions that you will need. Then we're going to be diving into some common workflows. So that'll include estimates, invoices, credit memos. I'll show you how to write off bad debts and receive payments. I will also show you how to create templates for your estimates and invoices. These are fully customizable. They can include your company logo, your colors, and there's a lot of custom designs you can do with that as well. And you will also learn how to manage and automate your reoccurring invoices. So without further ado, let's just hop right into QuickBooks. So this is your main homepage that will open up when you get into QuickBooks. Something you'll kind of find throughout this training is that there's many ways you can get to the same place within QuickBooks. For example, we're starting off in the Sales and Getting Paid app. From this home screen, you can click it here. You can also go to All Apps, Sales and Getting Paid, and then all of these different tabs will appear here. You also can go to Customize here and pin certain apps that you use a lot of the time. So as you can see now, we have the expenses and paid bills and accounting are pinned, and sales is also pinned. But we will just be accessing it through all apps for now. Starting off in the overview section. So this is just kind of a snapshot of all of the different items that are in these tabs here. So you can create actions here. It gives you some snapshot items at a glance, income over time. So again, just a nice overview here. But starting off in the sales transactions tab, as you can see at the top, you have your estimates, your unbilled income, overdue invoices, open invoices and credits, and your recently paid items. Down here, you'll have all of your recent transactions that you've entered into the software. And this is filterable, so you can filter by what type of transaction, when the transaction occurred, or by a certain customer. And then down here, if you click on any of these headers, you can filter by whatever the name is. So for example, if I wanted to filter by amount, I could just click amount here, and as you can see now, it's sorted by amount. But you can do that for any of these. And you can also create new transactions on this page, which as you can see, there's many options for you there. This is just kind of a general overview of what's happening in your business. Moving on to invoices. As you can see, it shows your overdue, not due yet, not deposited, and deposited invoices. The bottom again will show all of your recent invoices, and you can also create an invoice on this page as well. Moving on to payment links. These are if you want to receive payments through QuickBooks Online. You can create either a one-time link or a multi-use link by pushing new payment link here. One-time links are if you want to create a payment link for one specific customer, and once that customer pays through that link, it will expire. So I'll kind of just show you what setting that up will look like. You just type in your amount here. You can tell your customer what it's for. You put in your customer's name and their email. And then you'll choose how that's going to be paid. So whether that's credit card or bank transfer, you'd click that option and then send payment link. And that would send an email with the payment link to your customer, and they can pay through that email. Multi-use payment links are used for, say you have a single product that you want to create a link for. You can create that link, customers can pay for that product through the link, and it can be used multiple times. So for example, you'd enter your amount here, say what it's for. You'd click this if you are selling a product and delivering it after the payment is made. And again, you can choose the credit card or bank transfer. Once those are active, it'll look like that, and it'll show all of your payments that have been made through the link here. Next, we'll go to reoccurring payments. You can schedule charges to your customers here on a reoccurring basis. So I'll show an example here. You'd push create reoccurring payment. You'll add your customer here. You can either choose one from the drop down that you've already entered as a customer or add a new customer on the fly. But let's say we wanted to create a reoccurring payment for ABC Company. All of the information that we have already entered for this customer will auto flow down here. And then we would just enter what the recurring payment is for. So say it's for contracting and it's $1,000 and it's taxable. You'd click here if it's just a one-time payment, click here if it's taxable, and it'll calculate down here. Sales tax is calculated automatically based on the address of your customer. So you can click here to see how that's calculating. You'll want to make sure this is correct to make sure that you are paying the correct amount of sales tax. But once you check that and think that that looks good, you're good to go there. These are also all customizable, and you can add attachments as well. Now over here, you can decide when this recurring payment is going to start. So let's say we want it to start the beginning of next month. So I would just push July 2026, and you can either have it end never or end by. And let's say we want this to end at the end of this current year. So I would just click December. So this is repeating each month on the first day of the month. You can have reminders set, so it'll remind your customer to accept the request before it expires, but they'll only have to accept it one time and then they'll be good from there. But review and send will show us what this email is going to look like. So here we can change the email if it's not sending to the correct person. We can select if we wanted to send as a copy. We can change the subject that will be sent to the customer and all of this email body that will be sent. This is what the email will actually look like, and they can just set up the payment through here. The next item is sales orders. Sales orders, if you don't really know, are a way to manage your inventory. So you can basically reserve your inventory and track your customers' commitments without it actually hitting your books. So this is mainly for managing your inventory. You can create those through here. Sales channels allow you to sync your e-commerce platforms like Shopify, Etsy, eBay, Amazon directly to your QuickBooks Online account, and it'll automatically pull in your sales orders, payouts, and fees and correctly categorize them into your financials. So this can be a super helpful tool if you use any of these third-party platforms to sell your goods, and you would just connect those through here and follow the steps. QuickBooks Payouts only helps you track your deposits. You can send invoices and get paid through here. And then finally, products and services shows a listing of all of your products and services that you have input into the system. You can search by name, and then you also can search by type of product or service, and then by the amount of stock left. So this can be good for managing your inventory as well. And you can also easily edit these here. If your price or rate change, and you can also add new here as well. If you want to add a new product or service. Moving right along, we're going to move into the Customer Hub next. So again, there's a general overview page here that gives you a lot of snapshot items about your customers. Under customers and leads, you can see a listing of all of your customers and add new ones as well. You also get this information about your estimates, unbilled income, overdue invoices, open invoices and credits, and recently paid. And all of them are listed down here as well. You're also able to receive payments and create invoices on this page as well. Opportunities, this page enables you to track leads and existing customer opportunities all in one place. So there's a few different options you can do here. Connecting your email, enabling a survey, and you can add opportunities here as well. Estimates is where you can create estimates. I'm going to start here with an example in just a second, so we're not going to spend too much time here now. Contracts, you can use this page to create contracts and have them e-signed via PDF. Appointments, you can use this to book appointments with your customer. You're able to connect your calendar into QuickBooks Online, and your customers can schedule themselves as well through here. And finally, reviews. You can use this tab to create surveys for your customers to fill out, and this can be give you a better understanding of your overall customer satisfaction of your business. You can do that here. But as you can see, there are a ton of capabilities within QuickBooks Online, many of which I bet even experienced users don't fully know about or utilize. So if you want any further information on any of these items that we just went over, feel free to reach out to your Lutz contact, and they may be able to help you decide if this is something that would be right for your business, and they'll be able to help you implement it as well. Now that we've gone through each section briefly, I'm going to show you how to do some of those common workflow items that you might see on a day-to-day basis. So we'll go back to estimates that we were just in. And I'm going to start you off running through an example of how you would enter an estimate in yourself. You use estimates to give your customer a cost for a product or service beforehand, and then the customer has a certain amount of time to accept if they want to go through with that estimated amount. So to create your estimate, you'll just push create estimate here, and it'll open this draft page here. By clicking manage, you'll get this side view that gives you some ways that you can customize this form to better fit your needs. So for example, you can toggle these on and off and it will change your form. So for example, if we didn't have a service date, you could just turn that off or on if you do. And you can create custom fields here as well. Discounts and fees, that will be down here. You can do your discounts based on a percentage or a dollar amount and decide whether or not you want that before or after sales tax. Or if you have no discount, you can just turn that off as well. Shipping fee, you can turn off if you don't have. Turn back on. And then you can also schedule these as well. Design here, you can create your own custom templates for your estimates. And as you can see, all of these are templates that we've created. If you want to create a template, you can push add or edit here. And this will take you away from this form, so you'll have to either save if you want to save what you've done here, or you can just leave without saving. And then it will open this that will show all of the ones that you created before. Yours won't have any yet if you haven't created a template, so this will be blank. But you can create templates for all of these different items. One thing I will say is you have to individually create a template for each of them. You can't just create a template that flows over to all of these different items. You have to individually create them. But let's say we wanted to create a new template for estimates. It'll open this page up for us. You can just start out by selecting your template from all of these different items. It doesn't really matter, just whatever looks good to you. You can add in your company's logo by pushing add a logo. If you've already created a template for a, we already did an invoice template and now we're doing an estimate template. If you put the logo in there, it'll save it here. But if you want to upload, you could just push upload and it will let you add in a PDF of your logo there. But if we already have it, you can just push these three dots, select. And as you can see, it put that logo onto the template, which just kind of makes this look a lot more professional. And it also auto changed the color as well to match our logo. But we can change that if we want to as well. But you can change the size, the placement, whatever you feel looks good there. Again, you can change the color, font and font size, and your printing margins here. You're also able to fully edit the content of this form. So you would just do that by clicking into these individual sections and you can type in all of these. You can turn things on and off. So again, fully customizable each section. And then you can edit how the email will be sent if you are planning on sending these over email. You can edit the body here, decide whether or not you want the PDF attached. It's recommended you do just so they can see like the breakout of all those pricing items. Really customizable, you would just push done when you've finished editing that, and it would save that as a template that you can use over and over again. But let's go back to creating our estimate. So again, we could just go to all apps, customer hub, and then estimates, create estimate. So if we wanted to select the design we created, you would just, select here. And then we would want to fill out our form once we've done all of these customizations to the form itself. So let's say that we wanted to create an estimate for an existing customer. In this case, we'll do Prairie Construction, which we already have added as a customer. Everything that we've added to the customer again flows in here. So then you'll just add all of this information that you have. So let's say today is the day that we are creating this estimate, and it's going to expire at the end of the month. Once it's accepted, you can change the accepted by date here. Now I would just want to say what this estimate's for. So doesn't really matter for our purposes, but we'll say this is $1,200 and it's taxable. And we'll say we have two different things that we're creating an estimate for here. And then again, sales tax is automatically calculating based on the customer's address that's entered here. And then again, the tax based on these. You can edit these things here, but let's say that we've added everything in and it looks good. I like to push print or download, and then download. This will, one, save it, two, give us a PDF of what our invoice is going to look like. So you can see, our estimate's going to look like, see how that looks on our template that we printed out. If that looks good to us, we can, push save as it is already saved. If I click out of this, we can see our new invoice that I just created is right here. So let's say we created this invoice, we sent it to the customer. You can send to the customer by pushing this. It'll show what that email is going to look like. Once everything looks good, we can push send estimate. And it will send to them via email. But let's say that they accepted it. You can either push mark accepted here or go back into view and edit and change the status to accepted here and push save. So then when I click out of here, it now says accepted, and we can convert it to an invoice directly from this estimate screen. So if I push convert to invoice, you have some options here. You can either do the remaining total of all lines on the estimate, a percentage or amount, or a manual entry for each line, depending on what you actually want to invoice. But we'll just say that they want to pay the total of all the lines. So I would just push create invoice. And then we kind of have all of those same options as when we were creating an estimate. All of these are editable and customizable as well, but you can just push save, and that will save that estimate to your QuickBooks. So that was just a quick example of how I would go from creating an estimate, accepting it, and then converting it into an invoice really quickly. If I go over to my invoices page here, my invoice that I just created is sitting out here. But you don't have to do it that way though. If you just want to skip the invoice step or the estimate step and go directly to creating an invoice, you can do that through the invoices page, which you get to by going all apps, sales and getting paid, invoices. And you can just push create invoice here. Again, we have all of these customizations. If I go to manage, so again, you can toggle these on and off depending on what you are invoicing for. You can change the payment methods as well, depending on how this is going to be paid. Payment options as well, deposit, discount, shipping fee. And we have that same option for using a template. So again, you would have to remake a template for invoice. If you made one for estimate, you'd also have to make one for invoice. But let's just say we created this one and we liked it, so we'll select that one on. You can decide if you want to use a payment link here, and you have scheduling options here as well. You can do your reoccurring payments here if you want this invoice to reoccur, and they would pay this on a recurring basis. So for this example, I'm going to show you if you were wanting to add a new customer on the fly. So you would just go to add customer, add new. And then you would type in all of your customer information that you have here. So let's just say the new customer is AAA company, and you want to add any information you have. So their email as well. Phone number if you have it. Any of this information you have just makes things easier. If they've consented to email marketing, you can click this item. And then you can enter their address in down here. And then there's this little notes and attachments section. I find this to be useful if this is someone, potentially you're gonna issue a 1099 to or something like that. Any customer attachments that you have, I would add here, just so they're always on file. And when you click into your customer, you would see those attachments and they're easy to access that way. You can select your payment method and change customer type, tax rate, and add custom fields here as well. But once everything looks good, I would save it. Oh, and up here, these little icons just jump you down to different areas on the form. So if you're mass adding a bunch of customers, clicking these can make it easier to navigate. But everything looks good here, so I'm going to push save. And again, all of that information flows in here. For this example as well, I'll show you if you wanted to add a new add a new product or service on the fly. So I can just push this down arrow and push add new. And then we can add the name of what it is. So let's say we're adding landscaping. And you would say what it is. So service, inventory item, non-inventory item, or bundle. So that would be, a group of services or, a group of inventory items, like not just one single thing. But in this case, it's a service. You can change the category. So if we have multiple different categories of things that we do, you could add a category, or if you already have it, you could select one from here. And class, if maybe you have multiple offices or multiple locations, you could click which one that is as well. a little description if you want it to appear here. You can set the rate that you want it to come in as there, and then what income account you want sales of this product or service to go to. And then if you purchase this service from a vendor, you would select that here. But once everything looks good, you would save and close. And since I added a rate, an amount that would come in here, again, you can select taxable or non-taxable. Tax rate or the sales tax auto calculates based on the location. But again, once you're happy with everything, I'd again print or download to see the PDF version of what that invoice is going to look like. And then, I would save this, and you can also review and send that to your customer from here as well. So let's just say you want to just record the transaction. You didn't put an estimate in or record an invoice. Basically, you just want to skip the entire accounts receivable portion and go directly to recording the sales receipt. I would do this by going to create up here, which create just gives you a bunch of different options that you can do, but going to create sales receipt allows you to just record the sales here. You would choose your customer, and then you have the option to either record a payment or charge a new payment, depending on if it's been paid already or you still need to charge them. And you can change the payment method and where it's depositing to if you're charging a new payment from here. You'll say what it's for. Doesn't really matter for our purposes again, since this is just an example, but say that, and it's taxable. You can change the message here, but this is just going to record that payment that we've already received. You'll want to make sure to add the date that you actually received this in here, depending on what that is. But again, once everything looks good, I would just push record here. And one thing that's helpful when you're recording these is you can go to more and look at transaction journal. When you open the journal view, this is what will appear, and it'll show how that sales receipt is going to be hitting different accounts. So as you can see, it's hitting cash for $107, construction in progress for $100, and then those two different sales tax accounts are being hit as well. So that's just a way that you can make sure that your transactions are hitting the correct accounts that you want them to. Next thing we're going to do is look at how you'll receive payments. And I kind of have a quick tip for you on how to account for your deposits, especially if you deposit a lot of checks at one time. But to receive a payment, you can just go to create again and go to receive payment here. You can choose like the customer you're receiving a payment to, or sorry, receiving a payment from. And then there's kind of two options you can do with deposit to here, either to your undeposited funds account, or you can do it to your checking account. I would do it to my checking account if I received a check and I'm going to the bank to deposit that one check today, and it will flow through onto my bank statement as a deposit for the exact amount of that check that I'm depositing. But let's say you go to the bank once a week and deposit all of your checks you received every week. Like you'd be depositing, say, 5 checks when you're going to the bank. All of those 5 checks are going to come through as a lump sum payment or lump sum deposit on your bank statement. So then when you go to reconcile that bank account, it'll just show deposit for the total sum of all of those checks that you deposited at once. If that were the case, I would deposit to undeposited funds. Because depositing to undeposited funds allows you to deposit all of those checks that are going to be deposited later this week into undeposited funds. And then once you actually are going to deposit those, you can select all of those checks at once and actually deposit them into the bank in that lump sum amount. So your bank statement will match what the deposit actually came in as by doing it that way. So I'll run you through a quick example of doing that. Getting a payment from Green Company. We would say the amount that we received, and we want to deposit that to undeposited funds as of today. I would push record and close. Save as credit. So then I would go over to create bank deposit. And then all of my payments that I've received and not yet deposited into the bank are shown here. So let's say I'm going to go to the bank today and deposit not only this one that I just deposited, but also all of these other ones. Let's say I'm going to the bank and depositing all of those if these were checks. So it'll show the payment total here, which is going to match exactly what's going to be coming over onto my bank statement, because my bank statement's going to show deposit and then this total amount, this 4,000 amount, because that's what I selected here. Whatever date I'm doing that on, I would change the date here, and you can change the account that it's going into. In this case, it would be going into my checking account, and I would save and close. So this is helpful if you are doing your bank rec, because then it'll just match exactly what checks or payments came through to what your bank statement will say. Especially helpful if you are not the one who completes your bank recs, so you wouldn't really be able to tell what payments were actually deposited because you didn't know exactly what checks those were. So that's just kind of an accounting tip that might make your life easier when you're completing your bank reconciliations. The next item we're going to look at is creating credit memos. You'll want to do this for a variety of reasons. Maybe your customer does a return, you're giving them a credit for an early payment, or just anytime you just want to reduce their outstanding balance, you'd want to do this. So you can go to create credit memo. As you can see, this looks pretty similar to the estimate and invoice screens that we've looked at previously. But I'll just kind of run through an example. If you were wanting to decrease the balance, you would want to decrease a customer's outstanding balance. So let's say we want to decrease Prairie Construction's outstanding balance. Select the date you want to do that on, and then you would want to put the amount. So let's say we want to decrease it by $500, taxable or non-taxable, depending on if you want that. One thing I will say about this too is if you're creating a credit memo, QuickBooks Online's default settings are to auto-apply that credit memo to the outstanding invoice that's currently out there. But if you don't want that to happen, like in our file, we have that turned off, but I can show you how to turn that off in your settings in just a second. But let's say we want to create this credit memo. We push save and close. So now I'm going to open the accounts receivable aging report to show you how that's going to look there. The accounts receivable aging report shows you kind of all of your accounts receivable items that are currently outstanding. So whether those are memos, invoices, whatever they may be, all of them are shown here. Ones that are current are in this column. All of these columns are different age categories, and then any that are over 91 days old would be here. This is just a test file, so that's why there's so many 91 and over outstanding. You wouldn't want to see this in your file. This would probably mean some of this might need to be written off, or you need to reach back out to those customers and see where those payments are. But as you can see, this memo comes up here. And if we had an outstanding invoice, it would show up here too. For this example, I'm going to quickly create an invoice just so we'll have one there. Let's say we had an invoice for Prairie Construction. Doesn't really matter what it's for. Say it was for $1,000. I guess we had an invoice already created. We could just add that here. Copy to invoice. So now that one that we created earlier, we can just delete this row because we already created this invoice or this estimate earlier. And then click save. And we'll close out of that. And then once it refreshes, you can see that invoice that we just created is here and that memo is here. So when we created that memo, it didn't auto apply to an invoice. If you don't want your memos to auto apply to your invoices, you can follow these steps I'm about to do. So you go to settings, account and settings, advanced, and then you'll scroll down to automatically apply credits and turn that off. Because then you can apply your memos how you want to, and they won't just automatically apply to whatever outstanding invoice is out there. So I would probably recommend doing that. So now if I do want to apply these two to each other, I would go to create, receive payment, type in my customer, and then here you'll see the invoice and the memo. As you can see, the memo's for less than the total open balance. We're not actually receiving any payment here. I am just going to record and close this. And now that memo has been put into this invoice. This was the total amount, and now this is the remaining open balance now that that credit memo was applied. This function of credit memos is also useful for returns. One thing I'll say about returns within QuickBooks Online is QuickBooks will automatically return inventory back into your inventory count if you make a return. If you don't want that to happen, you'll have to do an inventory adjustment to keep that inventory out of your inventory count. Like let's say it was damaged inventory or you just aren't going to resell that inventory. You'd have to adjust your inventory after the fact because QuickBooks will have added that inventory back in if you complete a return. We'll just do an example. Just reopen the accounts receivable aging summary. Let's say we sold inventory to Jones Company for $100. So they bought this inventory and paid for it already. And now they want to return $50 worth of that $100 of inventory. So I would go to create credit memo for Jones Company. We would put whatever that inventory was. Doesn't matter again for our purposes, but we would create a memo for the $50 that they returned. We'll just say that that's not taxable for our purposes again. And then we would save and close this. Now what we would want to do is create an expense. So you can just do this by coming to create here and going to expense. Who did you pay? We're going to put Jones Company back here. And we want to put in accounts receivable for the category, the amount that they want to return. This is going to create an expense that we will have to pay back to them. So whether that's issuing them a check, sending them a Venmo, however we are going to pay that out doesn't matter. This is just going to create the expense so we know that we have to pay it out. So I would push save and close. And then we would go back to receive payment, type in Jones Company. As you can see, our expense, which is the amount that we have to pay out to them, is here, and that credit memo we created is here, and we received no funds, but we would record and close. So then the expense is going to be outstanding on your bank reconciliation until that check or payment actually clears the bank. Another scenario for credit memos is if the customer overpays you and you need to refund that back to them. So we would have an invoice already out for them. So for example, this Horizon Company invoice is for $1,000, but say they actually paid us $1,200. So we would want to go to create expense. Again, Horizon Company is who we're looking at here. We would want to create an expense to accounts receivable for the amount of the overpayment. So their invoice was for $1,000. They paid us $1,200. So we would do $200, which is that difference there. Again, edit our payment date that happened, and save and close. So we would go to receive payment, type in our customer. And then, so the amount received was $1,200. And as you can see, we received $1,200. We have that expense with the extra amount and the invoice with the actual total they were supposed to pay. We would record and close to record that payment. And once you pay your customer back, you'll see that $200 outflow on your bank rec. The next thing we're going to look at is writing off bad debt. So as you can see, we would probably have a lot of bad debts here because these are older invoices and we might not expect to receive payment for those. When you know that you won't receive that payment ever, like, so let's say we're not going to receive this 1605 from DEF company. So the first thing I want to do if you've never written off a bad debt before is you'll go back to all apps, you'll go to sales and getting paid, and then down to products and services. And here you're going to create a new product or service. And this will be a non-inventory item. You would name this bad debts. And click save and close. We already have a bad debts account, so I'm not going to record a new one here, but that's what you would do. If we go back to our aging summary, again, we decided that this one we are not going to receive. So I am going to create credit memo to that customer to the bad debts account that we just created. Don't have tax selected for this because we want it to be that exact amount that's outstanding. Push save and close. And then I would go to receive payment. And again, we would receive no amount of money, but this credit memo to bad debt is going to write off that receivable and take it off of our accounts receivable aging summary. So that's all I have for you today regarding accounts receivable. I hope you got a few good takeaways from this and hopefully have some clarity on some different functions available to you when using QuickBooks Online. I will reiterate that you can definitely reach out to your Lutz contact and they will be happy to further walk you through anything we went over in today's training. I know there was a lot there and it can get kind of confusing. So, an initial walkthrough can definitely be very helpful in order to better understand some of these things. But with that, I think we've about wrapped everything up. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you.